But let's pivot and get to a developing story in Baltimore. Quarterback Lamar Jackson did not practice today. Now, this comes a day after Jackson left practice early with what the team said was due to his foot being stepped on. Here's his head coach, John Harbaugh, moments ago.
Yeah, he got his foot stepped on, like we said yesterday. I think Chad had mentioned that. They did a quick x-ray, and there's no damage or anything like that. I'm sure it's a little sore today, so we just kept him in, but he's fine. He's going to be good. It was a big relief, yeah. I told the guys, I said, prayers do get answered, because I was praying. And God came through. So, but he's good.
Adam, what more can you share with us about Lamar Jackson's status?
It sounds like it was a little bit scarier than the Ravens let on, because they did take x-rays. They did say there were no signs of any broken bones or any issues. And John Harbaugh admitted that his prayers were answered. So if it was anything that was nothing, he wouldn't have to pray that Lamar Jackson's x-rays would turn out the way that he did. He didn't practice today, second straight day. And look, they don't have to have Lamar Jackson out there right now. They need him out there for the start of the regular season. So I would imagine they'll give that foot a couple of weeks to heal. It certainly sounds like the test came back as well as they could have hoped, but they're going to be smart with Lamar Jackson, and they're not going to stick him out there any sooner than he has to be.
Adam, you're right. They do need him out there for the regular season. The Ravens are just 4-9 without Lamar Jackson since he became the starter in 2019. Let's stick with quarterbacks in the AFC North. The Browns named veteran Joe Flacco as their starter earlier this week over rookies Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Those two have both dealt with injuries in camp. And moments ago, head coach Kevin Stefanski gave us an update on their plan for the final preseason game on Saturday.
Joe will start the game, Dillon will play second, Shedeur will play third. We want those guys to go out there and get us in the correct plays, run the offense, spread the ball around, all those things. But nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that we don't ask them to do out here on the practice field.
Whenever it's time for me to get out there and play, I'm going to play. Whenever it's time for the lights to come on, I'm going to do my thing. I'm not concerned about when it is. I'm not concerned about, how many reps I'm getting at this point is what it is, because I know when the lights come on, when everything go on, when the pressure's on, you know who I am, and I'm always be that way.
Let's welcome in Coach Herm Edwards. And Herm, what do you think about those comments from Shedeur Sanders?
Well, that surprised me. I've known him since he's a little guy, since a little kid, right? I was coaching the Under Armour game, and Dion was one of the assistant coaches. So he has a lot of confidence, similar to what the confidence his father had. But I think he finds himself in a predicament right now that, look, I thought he played well in the preseason, but when I watched Gabriel play, oh boy, it was different. Dillon Gabriel was very good in the pocket. He ran the offense. I mean, he got the ball out of his hand. He was accurate, made some tough throws. This is why they drafted him. I can see why they drafted him. But I thought he really played well in the preseason game.
First of all, I am just surprised to see a 40-year-old quarterback playing in the preseason. I didn't know that was allowed, because that's not what's happening for Pittsburgh later tonight. But I think that what Shedeur said there about when the pressure is on, that is when he comes on. Lucky for him, this is a lot of pressure. Yes, it is just a preseason game. No, he's not competing for the starting job, but there's still a competition going, and that's for that number 2 guy. Who's going to get the reps behind Joe Flacco in practice? That is so incredibly important. Who is going to be the guy that is just a play away? And I saw when I was in Pittsburgh a couple years ago and Mitch Trubisky started and Kenny Pickett was right there. Kenny didn't have any kind of chemistry with the first team offense because he hadn't been getting those reps. Now I think that it's a similar situation, that you want to make sure these guys are getting chemistry with everyone so that when they are thrown in, it's a more seamless transition. I like Shedeur. I think that he has a higher ceiling and Gabriel has a higher floor, but that's what the preseason's for. Let's figure it out.
Well, this is all what this last preseason game is about, and to see if there's any way that it provides the Browns any insight into who's going to be the backup on opening day when the Cleveland Browns play the Cincinnati Bengals. That is where the real drama is in the Browns quarterback battle. And I think that you're going to see all 4 quarterbacks on this roster come next week once teams make final cutdowns. I think the Browns are planning to keep Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. Most teams don't keep 4. I don't know if Coach Edwards has ever kept 4 quarterbacks on a roster? I'd be curious to hear that. But I think the Browns view quarterbacks as currency. And unless they make some kind of trade here, dealing one of them away, which certainly could always happen, I would think they're poised to carry 4 quarterbacks next week. And these quarterbacks in the preseason finale will be vying for who gets second spot on the depth chart.
The preseason rolls on tonight with the Giants and the Patriots. For more on that game, let's bring in Jordan Renan, who covers all things Giants for us here. And Jordan, the rookie Jackson Dart has impressed so far in the preseason. How much should we expect to see him play tonight?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. The expectation is that we're going to see Dart early and often, perhaps throughout most of the first half on Thursday night against the New England Patriots. Now, this is important for Dart in that we don't know when we're going to see him again this season. Remember, Russell Wilson is the starter. We're unlikely to see him today in this preseason game. And that means that Dart could sit perhaps the whole season, perhaps a few games. It'll depend on how Wilson does this year. Now, it's also important to remember something that quarterbacks coach Shea Tierney told me just this week. I asked him, what was the biggest improvement about Dart so far since the start of training camp? And he told me it's his ability to retain information and how he takes it all in and how he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And then Dart, he noted how in the first preseason game, they messed up a play to Greg Dulcich, a pass down the seam. Second preseason game, got it right, turned into a touchdown. That's how much this game experience means to the rookie. Now, another thing to add here, and something we should keep in mind, is how much Dart plays with the Giants' first-team offense, specifically their offensive line. We saw it last week in the preseason game against the Jets. It could indicate that the Giants are preparing to get Dart ready to play whenever it may be in the regular season, sooner rather than later.
Great stuff, Jordan. Thank you so much. Well, Coach Herm, they're getting him ready to play, sooner rather than later. You went through a similar situation with the Jets when you had veteran quarterback Vinny Testaverde with the first-round pick Chad Pennington behind him on the depth chart. Take us behind the scenes. How did you handle that situation?
Well, I think how I handled it is going to be the same way the Giants have to handle it. When you look at their schedule, whoever scheduled this schedule for the Giants is not nice when you think about it. Their 2 away games are against division opponents, right? In Washington and Dallas. And then they turn around and play Kansas City and the Chargers at home. So that's 4 playoff teams. If they struggle, if this offense is kind of struggling after week 4, let's say they're 1-3, you might consider a change. We were 2-5 when I made the change. We were sitting there at 2-5, and I said, you know what? I made the change on the airplane. We had just played Jacksonville. We were flying back home. I was in the back of the plane where I was sitting. Called Paul Hackett back there. I said, Paul, I need to talk to you for a minute. He said, what's up? I said, 10's going in. He said, when? I said, he's next game. He's playing. He's a starting quarterback. And we ended up winning the division. Now, if you're a coach, you're looking at this, and I get it. You got to win because there's a lot of heat on you right now. And if Russell Wilson struggles early out of the gates, I can see this young guy playing. This guy reminds me a lot, when you watch him play, a lot of Josh Allen. Big, strong arm, accurate, mobile, runs. I mean, Coach had that guy in Buffalo. He sees it. Everybody sees it. It jumps off. It jumps off the film on you. It's like, whoa, look at this guy. So after week 4, we'll see.
Well, you're right, Coach. They certainly have a brutal schedule. And, Adam, as good as Jackson Dart has been, we've heard head coach Brian Daboll say that Russell Wilson is the starter. What more can you share with us about the Giants' quarterback room?
Well, I think that is the absolute plan. Russell Wilson will start the regular season opener against the Washington Commanders. They'll have him planning to play the next week against the Dallas Cowboys before they come home to play the Kansas City Chiefs in their home opener on Sunday Night Football in week 3. So it's a daunting early season schedule, certainly. And I think they're planning on going with Russell Wilson. But everybody in and around the organization can see that aside from Russell Wilson being impressive with throws like this one, Jackson Dart, it's not too big for him. He's got a certain electricity about him. He's become a leader early on in his rookie year, and guys are gravitating towards him. And I think he's been all that they hoped he would be and more. We all know at some point in time, Jackson Dart's turn is going to come. But really, it'll be up to Russell Wilson, the team. If they come out and play well early and win, Russell will keep his job. If they don't and they struggle, then at any point in time, they are open to going to Jackson Dart for that type of spark that Coach Edwards was talking about on the plane ride back to Kansas City.
You see, that's the difference. I just experienced the Russell Wilson experience, roller coaster, whatever you want to call it, in Pittsburgh. And in that, when they were winning and they were hot, the vibes were good. And then they started to lose. But Mike Tomlin stuck with Russell Wilson because he was his number one choice. That was the guy that he put all his eggs in that basket. He wanted to bring him there. That was the guy, ride or die. And he didn't have the pressure of being concerned about his coaching status. He was going to be fine no matter what. It is so different in New York because we know Jackson Dart is their number one guy. Yeah, they like Russell Wilson, but they didn't draft Russell Wilson. They know that Russell Wilson is not their quarterback of the future. And when you've got a guy like Jackson Dart that has this aura and this swagger, everything I've read, everyone I've talked to has just talked about how genuine and how just charismatic and captivating this guy is. You want to play for him. And so I think when you're the Giants coaching staff and you know that all the pressure of the world is on you to get this quarterback decision right, and you've got a guy back there that wants this pressure, that is not making the same mistake twice, it's a lot easier to take the reins out of the hands of a guy like Russell Wilson, who still has an amazing moonball, but as we've seen, the decision-making isn't always there. He's lost a step or two. He is not the same quarterback he used to be. It is easier then to pivot to Jackson Dart and give him the reins and say, hey, let's go. Let's be charismatic and get them out of the locker room and onto the field and into the end zone.
Brooke, you talk about the aura of Jackson Dart. I live in New York City. People are intoxicated with the idea of Jackson Dart being the future quarterback of the New York Giants. I sit next to Chris Canty, Giants Super Bowl champion, every single day, and he is pleading with the Giants to open their heart to Dart.
The team that has been decimated at the wide receiver position is the San Francisco 49ers, and that's why, in the end, they were willing to make a deal with the Kansas City Chiefs in a late-round draft pick flop, where the 49ers now pick up Skyy Moore, who was unable to gain any traction in Kansas City, and now will have the opportunity to catch on in San Francisco, which has a whole host of injuries to basically its entire receiver group. The only healthy receiver out there right now, and I even hesitate to say anything because so many things seem to go wrong with so many skill position players. Ricky Pearsall has been healthy. Other than that, everybody in the wide receiver room has been banged up.
Yeah, Adam, let's drill down on that and reiterate it. The 49ers do have their hands full with their wide receivers. 6 of their top 8 receivers are either hurt or suspended, as you mentioned. The only returner who's not, Ricky Pearsall, hence why they traded for Skyy Moore. This also comes just months after trading All-Pro Deebo Samuel to the Commanders. And Coach Herm, coming off the year that San Francisco had, going 6-11, coupled with those injuries, do you believe they're still Super Bowl contenders in the NFC, or has that window closed?
I don't think the window's closed. I think what's closed right now for them is their ability to put a healthy wide receiver core out there. You're talking about Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall played for me as well as Brandon Ayuk, and visited with John about 2 weeks ago. That's their concern. Can these get these receivers healthy? Because the schedule will allow them to win games when you look at their schedule. The schedule makers were nice to the 49ers when you look at the schedule. And so if they can just find a way to get these receivers healthy and get them back, this offense will be very, very potent. And defensively, with solid back, I mean, they're going to play outstanding defense. So they'll be in the hunt. They should challenge the Rams.
Yeah, and look, I think maybe one window closed. I think the old Super Bowl window closed. That doesn't mean another one isn't opening with this young core of players that they have now. They have some turnover on the defensive line, in the secondary, in the wide receiving core. And I checked in with Nick Wagner, our great 49ers reporter, and I asked him about those injuries in the wide receiver core and just how problematic are those going to be. And he said, look, yes, there is the Jennings contract issue, but by and large, this is not a situation with a lot of lingering injuries or lingering suspensions. So they should be getting those pieces back sooner rather than later to help them build and to gain some momentum. The talk around this team doesn't have anything to do with, gosh, our window's closed. What are we going to do? We're going to sit here and just be so sad. No, they're not trying to recreate what they used to have. They're trying to build on the fly. The Rams did it successfully a couple years ago, but I think a lot hinges on how quickly Robert Saleh can get this defense going in the direction and get them all to buy in to what he's preaching.
We're talking about how banged up they are at wide receiver. We also should point out how banged up they are at running back. There is really one healthy running back on the roster as well, and that is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's been their healthiest running back in training camp. We know what he went through last year. Now, the upside to all that is he is well rested. He is rejuvenated. And even the 49ers Pro Bowl left tackle Trent Williams said today that Christian McCaffrey this summer has looked like the NFC Offensive Player of the Year. He's been dominant in training camp, but they need him to be that way because Christian McCaffrey might be on the football field for every single down.
Well, a healthy CMC, that's something 49ers fans certainly want to hear. Well, the 49ers have the numbers on their side. They have a 60% chance to make the playoffs per our ESPN analytics. That's the fourth best in the NFC.